Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. We're looking at how do we move from Mathcad 15 to Mathcad Prime 8. So briefly, our agenda for today, we're going to do a brief introduction as to why mathematics is important and where Mathcad fits into that. And then we'll go over some of the key Mathcad Prime enhancements that have been made over the years. And then we'll get a demonstration of how you actually go through that migration process from Mathcad 15 to Mathcad Prime. And then, as I said, we'll do the Q&A right at the end. Okay, so why are calculations important? I mean, of course, you could just do everything with trial and error to figure things out, but this would be an expensive and time-consuming exercise. So for those reasons, we try to minimize how much trial and error needs to be done. And of course, we do this with mathematics. So the great thing about calculations is they can be used for sanity checks to see if you're on the right course and to help us determine if something is even going to work or if it's even possible at all. Math helps us design products and systems and predict how exactly they're going to work. And the combination of mathematics, physics, science, statistics, and engineering practices allow for engineers to make more accurate designs and predictions. Okay, so the reason why we're here, why do we need to move to Mathcad Prime? So on the 1st of January this year, PDC ended the sale and distribution of Mathcad Prime 1 to 6 and Mathcad 15. The reason for this is because they no longer have the right to sell and distribute a third-party component that's included in those versions. So that means all new subscriptions and subscription renewals will only include licenses for Mathcad Prime 7 and newer. But for those of you that are still using Mathcad 15 on a perpetual license, you can continue with that, of course. Okay, but there is something to be aware of when you are using old applications. It's not going to get updated to officially support new versions of Windows. And you do also introduce long-term risks in terms of security, hardware compatibility, and software platform compatibility. And the other downside is Mathcad 15 is not 64-bit, which means that it can limit performance on some really complex math calculations that you might be running. Okay, so I'm going to be handing over to Marcel. He's got a background in mechanical engineering and has experience in a number of different industries. And then for those of you that are new to using software to document your calculations, Marcel is going to take us through how something like Mathcad can help. He's going to go briefly over what's new in each version of Mathcad Prime since the move was made away from Mathcad 15. And then he's going to show us how we can move our Mathcad 15 documents over to Mathcad Prime 8. Okay, so over to you, Marcel.
Thank you for that wonderful introduction, Ross, and a happy but cold spring morning for those viewers. But as stated, I will be focusing on the implementation and use of Mathcad in the industry. So typically, if an engineering company were to start a new project, the steps would be to, compile a scope of work detailing the design or product or project intent. You would then capture the critical calculations or values necessary for starting the conceptual design, detail the design and optimize any parameters necessary, internally review the design to ensure that it matches with the scope of work, and validate the intended design with calculations and findings with the client. All of this before the product or project can kick off with the action phase, such as your tooling, manufacturing, or technical publications, quality, and even your purchasing. Usually, all relevant parties, such as designers or project leads, cross-check the project at every step with the scope of work. And sometimes, for milestone purposes, you cross-check those findings with the client as well for final approval. Mathcad provides us with a tool to document all of our findings and calculations in a readable and shareable format for all parties involved during the critical stages of the project. When tackling a project, like mentioned in the previous slide, it is usually met with the following challenges. If we are talking about hard copies, their reusability is an issue, and as everything needs to be rewritten manually. And let's face it, engineers are lazy. Even though we were taught to write all of our steps down, we hardly ever do, and even if we do, we don't have the best handwriting. To fight this laziness and speed up the process, we can implement some standardizations such as templates or digitization tools such as Excel. And yes, Excel is a powerful tool, but how many times have you had to do hand calculations to prove that your formula is correct? Or add an additional calculation just to convert your input data to a common unit of measurement? The lack of early design validation and thorough tracking or documentation of all findings can lead to confusion or doubt moments before the project is supposed to kick off. I can remember working on a water station for measuring the IP rating of motors and lights, having to first find the pump specifications and then manually calculate the flow through the pipes, all to confirm that our fittings won't cause an issue and the required flow rate of the nozzle will be met. All of this scattered all over my personal computer and the server. And usually we separate our documentation from our calculations. I mean, not everyone cares about the gearbox ratio or the impact regarding weight between stainless steel or aluminium. So we clean up the spreadsheet only to show the values, maybe even some screenshots to spice up the documentation, and that all gets transferred to Word and sent to marketing or the client for cross-checking. But between rewriting the formulas from your physics or electrical handbook and having to update values as the requirements change, a simple conversion or miscalculation can result in the need to rework either the entire project or a crucial part within the design. This is where PTC Mathcad comes in, a great tool for documenting and sharing your calculations, all from the same environment. Mathcad Prime has been receiving multiple updates and improvements over the years. Some of the key differences between Prime and Mathcad 15 are the improved UI and easier to manage multiple documents. You've got collapsible areas, which include vertical and horizontal separators, the ability to change math styles, and the programming interface to other applications such as Creo Parametric. Some further improvements have seen the addition of locking certain areas, mostly for intellectual property security. They do have other functionality as well, and further improvements with third-party applications. As for the latest, which is Prime 8, there are several updates to application-level functionality, which include important features requested by users. Now we can set warnings for when either user or system-defined identifiers such as variables, constraints, and functions are redefined in your worksheets. This allows you to avoid unknowingly changing the definition of critical parameters. There's also now a partial derivative operator, and with the new show frame functionality, you can turn on header, footer, or page view borders. You can also copy multiple values and paste them into the combo box edit mode, making combo box input control creation even easier. Now onto the demonstration, where I will be focusing on some of these changes. such as converting your Mathcad 15 legacy data and reviewing the data for accuracy. A combination where we showcase the improved unit handling engine, especially from within matrices, and then some further smaller enhancements. This slide showcases some of the more advanced features built into Mathcad, but will not be showcased during this webinar. If you would like us to cover any of these functions, please let us know and we will gladly host another webinar or record a short YouTube video. So I'm going to firstly go over to Mathcad 15. And here we can see for those that are used to Mathcad 15, the interface of one of our open documents. So the first thing that I want you to take note of is how Mathcad 15 shows and uses the units. From my personal opinion, they are a bit unreadable as they blend in with your math or your calculations. And another thing that will become relevant a bit later is the use of subscripts within text blocks. So now if I wanted to view or increase, the zoom in to the value that is critical for us, the 2.698 pound force, we can see that our value is here at the bottom. Now, if I want to zoom out, I have to use the predefined zoom percentages. And if I wanted to switch over to a different window, I have to go window and open this up. So I have no idea without going in here what my open documents are. And also to open your tools, you have to sit on these on your side. You have to enable them and have them floating here on your side, here on the side. So now with that, what I want to do is I'm just going to hide these first. So here I've got example 1. I'm going to open my Mathcad Prime. The first thing you'll see that if I want to now convert my legacy data, I'm just going to add the worksheet, and here we can see that I'm in my Mathcad 15 original files, and there's the old one there. So here's our example 3. And this is the little converter. You can see that I have already converted it and saved it, but I'm going to go through the process again. So as a final or as a check for those that don't still have the legacy Mathcad 15 installed, what you can do is you can save the worksheet as an HTML. Convertible overwrite, that's fine. We can see HTML status is in progress. We can see it's saved, and let me just on my other screen go to that location, and here we go. So this is a convenient way for us to just quickly check all of the values, and if we scroll down we can see that it is still on 2.698. So that's one way of reviewing it. But of course, if you still have your Mathcad 15, then you can simply go in to the folder. It's just making sure, apologies, it's just making sure that your values didn't change with the conversion. So now, if I open up, here's my converter. Now I want to convert it to the actual Mathcad Prime worksheet. Just going to override it again. Version logs, we can see it's in progress, and there it's converted. So now we get within this converter, we get this pop-up saying 6 out of 78 regions contain differences, 6 unsupported formatting, font formatting is subscripts. So I'm just going to show you one of those subscripts here in the 15. just so you understand what that means. So let's go to 15 files, original, go. Okay, so the first thing to notice is we'll go to, let's get the first text block where they use subscripts. Here we go, table 34, case 1A. 34, case 1A. So what's great is you get these little annotations. You'll see there's a clear function here as well. We'll use that a bit later. So we can see that here's note this region was changed by conversion. Now we can view and we see, okay, it was a font formatting for the subscripts. And if you look closely, you'll see that the P2 over P1 contains subscripts, but within Mathcad Prime, you can't, within the text blocks, you can't use the subscripts. What you can do if you really want to is actually use a text block within your text if you really wanted to do it this way. But just note that Mathcad will then essentially see it as a math input. And let's just delete that one. Okay, so that's the first conversion error. We'll go down. Here we see another one. And once again, subscript. I'm just going to zoom in. As you can see, you have some improved control functionality. I can just hold control and zoom in. It just makes it easier from usability points. Okay, there's another one. Once again, just a text block. I'm just going to zoom out a bit. Text block. Okay, so they all seem to be just text block issues. And then we can see we don't have our value yet. Okay, just going to minimize this and increase here for viewability. I'm going to go up. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm just going to clear the annotations because I now noticed that it was only for text blocks, so we're not too worried about that. But now we want to sort out why we're not getting any answers. So the first thing you'll see is that your units aren't properly defined as units. So once you change them, I'm changing the first one, you can see Mathcad Prime now runs through them. Okay, didn't do the feed one. Ah, there it does it as soon as I clicked on it. So now if I go down, just going to check all of them. Here we can see the very first pop-up. This is what in the slides where we were talking about your variables being redefined and you tracking when those variables are being redefined. So because we're doing a case study between different circumstances, we don't mind it being replaced, but this becomes very crucial when that is actually the value that you want to work with. We can go down, we're starting to see some results, some more redefinitions, and there we go. There is our 2.698. There we go. And as you also notice that the units are clearly defined in blue, so they stand out a little bit easier and it's just easier to track. What we can also do is just show our grid. Change this to the A4 and we want our narrow. Okay. And now if I wanted to switch between any of my windows, you'll see that I've got tabs popped up here. So here I've got an untitled one, here I've got my webinar one, which I will get to. Actually, we can go into this now. So as you can see here, I've got, if I double click, I can go into my header. And if I click up here, I can go into my footer. And you can even, just like previously, you can call on the name and you can call on the path. Oop, you can hit it behind there. Here we go. There's the path of where this is saved. Just delete this one as well. So it just makes your documenting and creating your templates a lot easier. Because for instance, let's say here I've got a blank one, just to show you how to do that. I've got a new worksheet, just a blank. But now, because we can easily use templates, I can go new from my templates, open the standardized templates, and there it is. You can continue using this, and it works exactly like your standard Office programs in terms of headers and footers. I'm just going to close all of these and go to the actual webinar part here. So we can see I'm just going to showcase some of the unit handling, the password protected regions and the separators, and then matrices at the end. The first thing here with unit handling, you'll see that I've got this collapsible area here. Now, if I click the plus sign, it expands an image that I've included, and I've even got my little cheat sheet source here. Open that up. You can see that the hyperlink works there as well, and this is exactly where I got that from. Now, let's say, for instance, you don't want people to see that you're still struggling with your geometry. You can actually hide that. And now in terms of your unit handling, what this does is it just calculates the area of a triangle and the volume of a sphere. So for the first one, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to change to show the unit handling, change that to millimeter. You can see it automatically recognized it as a unit. You can create custom units if you want. You just need to define it as a unit. I'm going to change that to inches. As you can see, it keeps updating here at the bottom. I can even do this in kilometers if I wanted to. And I can go math. What was that? There you go. So we can go and we can increase this. There's our value. So now in terms of the collapsible area and hiding, let's say, for instance, this is very crucial or IP protected calculations that you're doing here. What you can do is if you right click on it, you can say protect the area. And this is where you can lock the display state of the area in either expanded or collapsed. Let's say I don't want them to see how I got to the answer. I'm just going to add a password in here. Let's say protect the area. Here we can see that it has been password protected, but that doesn't influence the values at all. Your math is still being calculated just as normal. All it's doing is hiding it for the viewer. So now, as you can see, I'm trying to click. I can't do anything, but now if I want to unprotect it, I just have to type my password in again, and there I can unprotect it. So as stated, you can also adjust for if you're afraid of someone changing your calculations, you can protect it like that as well. So now I can't edit anything, but once again, this still, there we go. Still works perfectly fine with your calculations. So now on to the matrices side. One of the functions that they have increased, if you go to your matrix, is easier expansion or deletion of rows and columns. So if I want to, depending on where my cursor is, I can insert right, click here, I can insert left, and I can even insert below or above. Just makes your handling of your matrices a lot easier. You don't need to delete, re-input all of your values and start all over again. Taking that away there. So just to show that the functionality of matrices didn't change, it is still normal. Just did a few calculations over here. And to show you, I'm just going to zoom out. Let's say for this, the max value that we've got down here, I'm just going to change that to 6,000. Okay, that's all fine. One thing that they did improve is the ability to add different units. Oh, okay, didn't like that one there. Let me just go down here and show you what I mean by that. So here, for instance, we are calling up a certain value from within this matrix. And if I were to add millimeters there, we can see it's fine. And if I were to add with 906, I can add kilometers over there. And the 2230, let's say this is newtons. So now we can actually add different units within our matrix. And just to make that, of course, a bit easier, what you can do is, so this is the exact same table as above, or the exact same values. Let's say we're going to multiply into this one the units of millimeters, and this one is newtons. We're just going to augment it, C0, C1, and there we go. So now, of course, we can't edit these, but because it's being predefined, because it's an augmented matrix. So this is just giving our result. So here with the variable that we put in here, if we change this to 2000, it will of course change it for us. Now, another thing just to note during your conversion process, if you go to your resources, there is even under your references a migration guide. So that if you were converting your legacy files, there's a nice step-to-step guide, easy to access, that if you have any issues, calculation differences or your display differences, here's a help file to aid you with that conversion. And with that, I would like to say thank you for your time.